If you step into a thunderstorm without an umbrella, you can't really be angry when you get wet.
Right. You're just going to get soaked.
Exactly. Yet 80% of professionals step into the modern workplace completely unequipped for the climate, and then they act genuinely shocked when they get drenched.
Yeah, it's wild.
And that thunderstorm, of course, is office politics. So today, we're taking a deep dive into why so many of us, try to pretend those clouds simply aren't there.
It is a massive professional blind spot. I mean, you mentioned that 80% figure. That's a staggering statistic from our sources today.
Yeah, it really is.
8 out of 10 employees acknowledge that office politics actively exist in their workplace.
Ah,
Yet there remains this huge disconnect where highly intelligent, globally minded professionals still try to, well, put their heads down and opt out of the system entirely.
like it's a choice.
Right. They treat politics as a completely optional extracurricular activity.
So, our mission for this deep dive is to fundamentally reframe how you, the listener, look at that system. We want to strip away the idea that office politics is just about, manipulative backroom dealing.
It's so much more than that.
It is. We need to look at it as an essential, inevitable mechanism you absolutely have to master to survive. And to do that, we are pulling from a really dynamic stack of sources today.
We got some great ones.
Yeah, we have raw, on-the-ground insights from a former McKinsey consultant detailing the toughest project of his career. We are incorporating the philosophy of conscious leadership from executive recruiter Jenny Clark.
Which is fascinating, by the way.
Totally. And we are grounding all of this in some brilliant academic frameworks from Harvard Business Review authors Linda Hill and Kent Lineback.
It is such a powerful combination because it blends the theoretical frameworks with painfully practical reality. But to even begin navigating this environment, we first have to dismantle a pervasive myth.
Oh, the meritocracy myth.
Exactly. The myth of the pure meritocracy. It's this deeply held, almost romantic belief that if you just do excellent work, well, the deliverables will naturally speak for themselves.
Right. Coupled right alongside that is the other great workplace delusion, which Jenny Clark takes apart brilliantly, the whole "we are a family" narrative.
Yes.
The workplace is not your family. When leaders call it a family, it typically breeds this culture of toxic positivity.
Yeah, where you can't push back.
Exactly. Any disagreement, any boundary setting, or, any strategic maneuvering is instantly labeled as not being a team player.
Which is just a trap.
It is. The reality is that a company is a complex matrix of rules, systems, and individuals all operating with their own distinct agendas.
Precisely. And the Harvard Business Review piece outlines exactly why that matrix naturally generates politics. There are 3 structural reasons why politics will always exist in any organization, no matter how healthy the culture is.
Okay, let's break this down.
First, you have a diversity of perspectives. People fundamentally see problems and solutions differently based on their roles.
Right, marketing sees a problem differently than engineering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, you have interdependence. You simply cannot achieve your organizational goals without relying on other departments or colleagues.
You're tethered together.
You are. And third, you are constantly fighting to allocate scarce resources, whether that is, budget, headcount, or even just leadership attention.
So true.
When you combine diverse perspectives, human interdependence, and scarce resources, you inevitably generate negotiation and conflict.
It's unavoidable.
Completely. That dynamic isn't a glitch in the system. That is the definition of office politics.
But wait, if I am a professional who values my integrity, tipping my head down and just letting the deliverables do the talking feels like, well, the only ethical choice.
I hear that all the time.
Engaging in all that negotiation and jockeying for resources just feels inherently corrupting, doesn't it?
That is the exact instinct that derails so many promising careers. What I found profoundly insightful from the HBR source is the counter-argument to that exact feeling. They state quite clearly, powerlessness corrupts.
Powerlessness corrupts. Wow, that turns the old cliche completely upside down.
It does, but look at the underlying psychology of it. If you lack informal power in your organization, you literally cannot stand up for what is right.
You have no leverage.
Right. You cannot protect your team from bad initiatives, and you cannot secure the budget or the resources they need to actually thrive.
So by staying out of it, you're actually doing harm.
Exactly. By avoiding politics to keep your own hands clean, you essentially make yourself complicit in bad decisions because you have proactively stripped yourself of the influence needed to stop them.
So what does it actually look like when someone tries to ignore these dynamics? Our sources give us a terrifying case study of exactly this.
The McKinsey story.
Yes, from a business channel called Firm Learning. The creator, Heinrich, shares an experience from when he was a 24-year-old junior consultant at McKinsey.
Starting out, really.
Right, he gets staffed on a massive international project, and he decides to just focus entirely on the spreadsheet work, completely naive to the informal power structures swirling around him.
And he pays a very heavy price for that naivete. He was completely blindsided because he didn't realize that in a high-stakes corporate environment, informal power can and will be weaponized against you if you leave a vacuum.
Let's look at the anatomy of this nightmare because it is brutal. First, Heinrich is supposed to lead a kickoff meeting for a new work stream. He tries to prep with the client project lead, but the client is incredibly defensive.
Which is a huge red flag.
Huge. Then the actual meeting happens, and Heinrich is completely excluded. The client just takes over, gives him no role whatsoever, and Heinrich basically just sits there quietly.
Just letting it happen.
Yeah. And afterwards, that same client complains to Heinrich's bosses that the consultant, quote, added no value.
It is a textbook political maneuver. Exclude someone from the process and then penalize them for their lack of participation.
It's so manipulative.
It is. You create the failure, and then you blame the victim for it.
Mm.
But the situation deteriorated even further, didn't it?
Oh, it gets worse. Then there is the overseas client. Heinrich is supposed to collaborate with an executive on another continent. The client constantly dodges calls, goes on mysterious vacations, claims to be ill.
Just impossible to pin down.
Weeks go by with zero progress. When the division head eventually gets angry about the delay, that politically savvy client shifts all the blame onto Heinrich, claiming the young consultant just wasn't advancing the initiative.
Classic deflection. And the killing blow came from a finance professional.
Ugh, this part is infuriating. Heinrich needs specific data for an analysis. He goes into a meeting highly prepared, he has a written agenda, he has a formal data request.
He did his homework.
He did. But the finance guy clearly has no interest in doing the extra work, gives him practically nothing, and then immediately complains to Heinrich's leadership that the consultant showed up utterly unprepared and was just asking random questions.
Unbelievable. The fallout from all of this was catastrophic for his standing in the firm. He became totally alienated from his own team.
Yeah, they all turned on him.
His project lead and the partner turned against him. Because, as Heinrich realized much too late, perception is reality.
It really is.
In a corporate matrix, the objective truth of how well you've prepared matters far less than the narrative that takes root in the minds of leadership. He was framed as the culprit, and all of his defensive behavior after the fact just made him look like he was making excuses.
But looking at this objectively, he's dealing with hostile, uncooperative people. Where does the line blur between just being a victim of a highly toxic workplace and actually failing to manage your professional relationships?
That is the pivotal question. And Heinrich himself answers it with incredible self-awareness. Yes, the clients were playing a dirty political game, but his failure was letting them drive the car.
He didn't take control.
He was entirely reactive. He accepted the client excluding him from his own kickoff. He passively accepted the silence from the overseas executive.
Right, he just hoped it would work out.
Exactly. By not actively managing the situation and disrupting those patterns, his lack of action became his professional failure.
So if perception dictates reality, how do you stop someone from rewriting history after a bad meeting? We need to transition from diagnosing his failure to actual defensive strategies to protect our own credibility.
Well, the very first defensive strategy is putting yourself firmly in the driver's seat. If you recognize that a situation is setting you up for failure, you have to disrupt the momentum.
Stop the car.
Yes. In Heinrich's case, when he realized he wasn't being given a role in his own kickoff meeting, he should have paused the proceedings.
Going into a kickoff meeting without an agenda or a defined role is like handing someone else the steering wheel to your car and then complaining about where they drive you.
That's a perfect way to put it.
You have to demand the agenda or politely reschedule the meeting until the roles are clarified.
Exactly. But even if you refuse a bad meeting setup, you are still vulnerable to what happens after the conversation ends. How do you defend against a flat-out lie, like the finance guy claiming you were unprepared?
Right, he lied right to the boss.
That brings us to the second strategy, creating undeniable paper trails. This is where top-notch documentation becomes your armor. Heinrich went into that meeting with a great agenda and a data request, but he only had them physically in his hand.
Ah, he didn't send them digitally beforehand.
Precisely. Let's look at why paper trails work psychologically. A toxic colleague operates in the gray areas of verbal ambiguity.
Where it's he said, she said.
Right. When you send a crisp professional email summarizing an agenda before a meeting and then follow it up with a written data request immediately after, you drag them out of the gray area and into the black and white.
You force them on the record.
You alter their risk calculus. It becomes too professionally dangerous for them to lie to your boss because the objective proof is sitting right there on the company's server.
It eliminates their plausible deniability, which leads to the third defensive strategy, escalating at the right time. But wait, escalating the minute an overseas client dodges a call seems incredibly risky.
It can feel that way.
Because my boss is just going to view me as a complainer who can't handle their own workload. It feels like a quick way to destroy your own reputation.
It is a delicate balance, but here's the mechanism behind why timing is everything. Whoever escalates first holds the initiative and sets the narrative frame.
The narrative frame, right?
If you wait until the client complains about you to your boss, you are instantly on the defensive. You are pointing fingers from a place of weakness, saying, no, it was them. They didn't answer my calls.
You just look reactive. You look like you're scrambling.
Exactly. But if you escalate proactively, you aren't complaining. You are demonstrating leadership. You frame it as a strategic roadblock.
Oh.
You go to your boss and say, I am noticing a pattern of delays with this stakeholder that puts our Q3 timeline at risk. Given your experience with this division, how should we navigate this?
That's brilliant.
You own the narrative, and you make your boss a partner in solving the problem before it detonates.
Okay, so paper trails, controlling the agenda, and early escalation. That is your defense. That stops you from drowning.
Right. That's just survival.
But you don't build a career just by treading water and dodging attacks. To actually advance, you have to play offense. You have to deliberately cultivate alliances. And this is where Linda Hill's framework from the Harvard Business Review breaks down influence into 3 essential networks.
Most professionals only ever build the first one, which is the operational network.
The day-to-day folks.
Yes. These are the people you need just to get your daily deliverables out the door. Your direct reports, your immediate manager, the IT department. It's necessary, but it's entirely inward-looking.
So what are the other 2, and how do we actually build them, especially in a modern distributed workplace?
The second is your strategic network. These are the lateral and vertical connections outside your immediate sphere who help you scan the broader environment.
People who can see what's coming.
Exactly. They help you spot future opportunities or looming threats before they hit your desk. Building this globally means setting up a 15-minute virtual coffee with a division head in Frankfurt.
Even if you don't need anything from them today.
Right. Not because you need budget today, but because you want to understand how European regulatory changes might impact your pipeline next year.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the third is your developmental network. These are the mentors, sponsors, and peers who aid in your personal growth, providing a safe space to discuss career trajectory.
The researchers emphasize that building these networks is not about personal chemistry. It is not about just grabbing coffee with people who share your background or your hobbies.
No, not at all.
If you only network with people like you in a global organization, you are severely limiting your strategic reach and your access to asymmetrical information.
You have to build bridges across different cultures, different departments, and frankly, with people whose personalities might clash with yours.
Even the difficult people.
Yes. And the golden rule here is that you must build these networks before you actually need a favor from them.
Which brings us to the fire insurance analogy. Trying to network only when you need something is like trying to buy fire insurance when your kitchen is already engulfed in flames.
The agent is just going to laugh and hang up.
Exactly. But how do you strategically build these relationships without coming across as totally transactional? Because, I mean, that is exactly why so many professionals cringe at the idea of networking.
It only feels transactional when it is one-sided. The secret mechanism here is the rule of reciprocity. You cannot just be a taker.
You have to give something back.
You have to actively research and understand the other person's pressures. What are their quarterly priorities? What bottlenecks are they facing?
Put yourself in their shoes.
If you can offer a piece of data or align your team's goals to help solve their problem, you stop being a transaction. You become a long-term, highly valued partner.
What happens to the people who skip this entirely? The ones who just put their heads down? The HBR researchers have a great term for this, the competent jerk.
Oh,
We
yes.
all know this person. They are incredibly skilled. Their technical work is flawless, but they're absolutely awful to deal with. They ignore the relationship piece entirely.
And the psychology behind how an organization handles a competent jerk is fascinating. The HBR research notes that under stress, human beings will default to trusting people they like over people who are merely competent.
Wow, so the soft skills really went out.
They really do. Eventually, colleagues just stop engaging with the jerk. They start holding meetings before the meeting specifically to figure out how to cut that person out of the decision-making process.
They get frozen out of the matrix entirely.
Exactly. And the tragedy of the competent jerk is that by alienating their network, they actually lose their technical edge.
How so?
Well, in the modern workplace, we learn socially. We get early warnings through our networks. If you are cut out of the informal flow of information, your skills eventually stagnate. You become obsolete without even realizing it.
So we have talked about understanding the inevitability of the game, defending your credibility, and building informal power through networks. This brings us to the ethical core of this deep dive.
The most important part, really.
If we are building all this influence, how do we ensure that we don't just become the very toxic, manipulative politicians we are trying to defend against?
This is where Ginny Clark's philosophy on conscious leadership becomes so critical. She points out a fundamental psychological truth in the workplace. Hurt people hurt people.
That is so true, even in the office.
When you trace a toxic, highly political work environment back to its source, you almost always find leaders who are making narcissistic, fear-based, self-serving decisions.
And it just trickles down.
That toxicity cascades down through the matrix, forcing everyone else into survival mode.
So how does conscious leadership counter that cascade?
Conscious leadership requires a transcendent perspective. It means consistently making choices that look beyond your immediate ego or your departmental silo.
Seeing the bigger picture.
It is about making decisions that are in the best interest of the whole organization. It is the belief that there is a third way.
A third way.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game of your way versus my way. Conscious leaders navigate the matrix to find mutually beneficial paths where multiple stakeholders can thrive.
Ginny Clark talks about playing chess while others are playing checkers. But, I mean, if I am anticipating moves, leveraging networks, and moving pieces around the board, isn't that just a polite corporate way of saying I am manipulating people?
It's a fair question, but it is crucial to distinguish between dominance and navigation.
Okay, navigation.
Playing chess in this context isn't about crushing your opponent or deceiving your colleagues. It is about seeing the whole board.
Oh, I see.
It is about anticipating structural roadblocks, understanding what motivates other departments, and clearing the path for collective success. As Clark points out, meekness does not mean weakness.
You could still be strong.
You can be benevolent, you can operate from a place of deep integrity, and still be an absolute master of the game.
And sometimes conscious leadership means having the courage to recognize when the board needs to be flipped entirely.
Yes.
Going back to Heinrich's story, a few months into that nightmare project, a new project lead took over. This leader took one look at the failing dynamics, recognized they were stuck in a political dead end, and immediately went to the client to cancel the failing initiatives and propose a totally new direction.
They executed a massive pivot, and it worked. The relationships reset, and the project succeeded.
They didn't just force it.
No, they didn't just push harder against the locked door, they changed the parameters of the game.
Yeah.
But we also have to acknowledge the ultimate boundary here.
Which is,
If you are practicing conscious leadership, if you have built your networks and the environment remains entirely toxic and unyielding, you have to know when to leave. You must recognize when an organization is no longer worthy of your talent.
that's powerful. Let's bring all of this down to the ground level for you, the listener, for tomorrow morning when you open your laptop. Let's distill this deep dive into the 4 core strategies you need.
Ready?
First, accept reality. Office politics isn't a glitch. It is the system, driven by interdependence and scarce resources. Stop waiting for a pure meritocracy to automatically reward your hard work.
Second, play defense proactively. Put yourself in the driver's seat of your meetings and alter the risk calculus of difficult colleagues by using top-notch documentation to create undeniable paper trails. Perception is reality, so control the evidence.
Third, play offense by building your operational, strategic, and developmental networks. Use the rule of reciprocity to build those bridges before a crisis ever hits, so you don't end up an isolated, competent jerk.
And fourth, wield your influence ethically. Be a conscious leader with a transcendent perspective. Look for the third way that creates mutually beneficial outcomes rather than just feeding your own ego.
It takes courage to engage with the system rather than hiding from it, but it is the only way to ensure your best work actually sees the light of day.
Beautifully said.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We have spent this entire deep dive establishing that in the workplace, perception is reality, especially when you leave the room.
Right.
But what happens when there is no physical room? As we transition deeper into remote work and Zoom cultures, your digital footprint is entirely replacing your physical presence.
That's a scary thought.
It is. So ask yourself, are your emails, your Slack messages, and your virtual meeting habits shaping the right narrative when your camera goes off? Are you actively managing your digital perception, or are you letting the silence write your story?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay strategic, and we'll see you next time.